Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the presentation. We're going to start off. I want to give just a quick overview for those who are not familiar with DRA. You can explore their website at dra.gov. A couple of key things you want to know. They are a federal commission established in the year 2000 in the 8 states that make up the Delta region, which you can see listed across the tab at the top of your screen. Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, and Tennessee. And those governors make up the board of DRA along with the federal co-chairman of DRA. They promote economic growth and opportunity by investing in critical infrastructure and many other things. And their investment priorities include transportation infrastructure, other basic public infrastructure like water and sewer, a lot of business development, workforce development, job training, entrepreneurship. They have a lot of stuff that they do. And I just want to make a note at any point if I misrepresent um, my folks at DRA, please, help me out and correct me if I stray from the path. Thanks. So, why is Acadiana Planning Commission the one talking to you about DRA today? Because we are designated by DRA as your local development district. Um, so we have an annual contract that we have with DRA to provide this technical assistance at no cost to our potential applicants in our region. Um, Here is a slide showing if you happen to end up in this webinar, but you're not from Acadiana, you might be from another district in the state. This is our state LAPDD district map, and so happens to be the local development districts throughout the state as well. So if you ended up here, that's okay. We'll point you in the right direction and get you in touch with our counterparts for your respective district. So today we're going to focus on two DRA programs that are currently open. Um, if you go on their website at dra.gov and you click at the top of the screen on the programs tab, you can see the critical infrastructure programs that they have. And the first two, the state's Economic Development Assistance Program and the Community Infrastructure Fund, were both announced within the last 2 weeks and are currently open and accepting applications. And so those are the ones that we're going to talk about today. And I just want to say for our attendees too, there's few enough of us that if you have a question, feel free to chime in or use the little raise hand feature or put your question in the chat, but we want to make sure that we're getting to all those questions. So feel free to interrupt me if I am going too fast or if you have something you want clarified. So once you click on each of these links on the website, you will be brought to the landing page for the respective program for SEDAP or for SIF, okay? And they'll have some info about the program, but critically, you will see the notice of funding availability. That will be your program manual that you will reference as you check your eligibility to see if you want to apply. As you make your application, we'll go over a few of the critical details that are in those NOFAs, but I want to show you where you can access it yourself. Also, the bottom of each of those pages has a button that says apply that will link you directly to the application portal. Um, so a couple of the slides I sort of wanted to put side by side the two programs so we can kind of look at them and figure out, I know there's going to be questions about, well, they're both open and there is overlap, some similarities, some differences. Which one might I consider? So I want to shed some light in that regard. So side by side, The funding amounts you can see there, SEDAP has 16 million total for the 8 states, and SIF has 15 million. The award ranges from 50,000 to 500,000 for CDAP and 250 to 1 million for SIF. You may have remembered from previous grant cycles that SIF had a 2 million maximum. That's been reduced to a 1 million maximum this year. So, just plan accordingly. CDAP opened June 1st, and those applications will be due on July 31st. That one will be due a little bit before SIF. SIF will be open until August 24th this year. So if you want to make an application, if you haven't done so already, I know I've probably spoken with a few of you, but please contact me. Let's set up a call, let's set up a meeting, and we can talk about your specific project and kind of strategize in that way. Eligibility wise, they are pretty much in practice the same as far as who is eligible to apply. Cities, parishes, and counties, nonprofits, regional and economic development orgs, workforce boards, labor organizations, colleges and universities, training institutions, and federally recognized tribes. If you're not sure if you're eligible or not, just reach out and we can figure that out. There is so the next slide I'm going to show is DRA's map of distressed and non-distressed parishes. So here in Acadiana, we have 7 parishes that APC represents, and all of them are distressed except for Lafayette. If you're here from Lafayette and you're not sure if you're eligible to apply or not, please reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one and talk about that. Because there is a different set of rules that apply to those non-distressed parishes, and you may or may not, consider. There is a thing about isolated areas of distress within a non-distressed parish, and DRA has that interactive map available on their website, but you can see here that in the APC region, we don't have any that are currently designated as isolated areas of distress. But you can see the ones, near Lake Charles and New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Alexandria here. So again, if you're not sure about the eligibility, let's talk.
I, I, I have a question if I can. I don't want to
Yes,
just
sir.
jump. I don't want to jump in the middle. I'm driving, so I couldn't look down to press the hand. I'm sorry for that. How long? Because I'm going to apply for some funds. We're doing a $60 million wastewater treatment facility in Iberia Parish, and I'm going to try to see if I can get $1 million at least or so from Delta Regional. And when we apply for that, hopefully I'll get my director looking into it next week. Well, we'll be in Washington next week, so probably the week after that he'll be looking into it. How long, if we get accepted, how long is it before you can actually realize or receive some dollars if you get accepted?
That's a good question, President Richard. Thank you. So if you apply and you are accepted for an award, then once you return all of your award documents back and all of your necessary resolutions and things to accept that funds, then you will receive your notice to proceed from the Delta Regional Authority. But this is a reimbursement-based grant.
No problem.
Um, so you would, work with your engineering firm and your contractor and submit pay requests for work that has been done to APC, and we'll work with you to process a payment request.
Not a
Um,
problem.
and so, yeah,
So
typically,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
sir, go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, no, no. Finish what you're saying. Finish what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Basically, from the time of application to award notice to proceed, Generally 3 to 6 month kind of time frame, and then beyond that, it's really on the individual awardee on how fast they mobilize and move and get to a point of making a request for reimbursement.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm gonna put about $10 million into it for my Barrier Parish. I'll be putting that in a fund, in a line item in the next month or so. Now this project is not gonna be done in a year's time or 2 years because it's a major project. But we would have a certain amount of time to spend it, or it really wouldn't matter because we'll be doing work. We're doing work currently now, engineering and design. So if we would get awarded, we can just spend those dollars from our match. Well, we put in more than a match, but we'll just spend those dollars from what we're putting in. That
Yes,
wouldn't be a
sir.
problem at all. Okay, good.
Now
I'm gonna
the
get.
critical, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, the critical what? Say what you're saying.
The critical piece that you're going to want to bear in mind is that that notice to proceed date makes a huge difference for DRA, including for match. So if you have other committed funding, whether it be in your own local budget or some other state or federal source,
Mhm.
anything that you're putting in your application as match cannot be spent until DRA's notice to proceed, or they won't recognize it. If it's
Okay.
already been spent and then you
Okay.
get a DRA notice to proceed, you can't count that prior spending as match. So
Not a
that's,
problem. Yeah,
and
I
then
get that.
generally speaking, the grants are 24-month period, um, with some allowances for extensions if needed.
Not a problem, but we can make that work. We are in the process right now. I can talk to you about this later. I don't want to take up the time talking about. Really, that's what I wanted on the whole call. So for the most part, you answered my questions. I'm going to another meeting. I got to be there at 10:30. But you answered really what I wanted to know. So I'm going to get my director of sewer and water to call you. We may do it while we're in Washington next week, or we may do it when you get back the week after, or whatever. But you basically took care of what I need. I
Yes,
mean,
sir. Thank
okay.
And I'm glad you asked because that is a great example to have on the webinar. And I think it probably answered some questions that may not have been covered otherwise. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next slide. Before I do, did anyone else have any clarifications they want? Hearing none, I'm going to go on. So the two programs side by side, I want to put their overview up so you can kind of get an idea of the differences, okay? So DRA's SEDAP program is their primary economic development program that funds projects combining infrastructure, workforce, and business development to drive job creation and regional growth. Okay. The SIF program is DRA's infrastructure focused program that funds projects like water, transportation, and flood control to improve community infrastructure and quality of life. So there is some overlap. There are many projects that could probably fit under either bucket, but it's up to you and your team to work with us as the LDD to strategize and figure out timing, funding, and all of that to go along to figure out which is the better program for your project. So on the next slide, I pulled the uses from the NOFA and put them side by side, and you can kind of you can see the reiteration that basic public infrastructure, transportation infrastructure are both categories. But on the CDAP side, you have the workforce development and job trainings and business development entrepreneurship initiative categories. On SIF, they added flood control and drainage, which isn't really mentioned on CDAP. So you can kind of get an idea of the two. And at the bottom, you can see CDAP think more economic outcomes, job creation and retention, workforce, business growth. And that SIF program is really focused on systems, reliability, and resilience of your infrastructure. So I went ahead and pulled from DRA's press releases of the last rounds of CDAP so you could kind of get an idea of the types of projects that were funded in the most previous round. And with that, I want to add, DRA has been around since the year 2000. So they have over time with different administrations, different federal priorities. And so it's my advice to look to the most recent award cycles to get an idea of what they're paying out for. You may find things that were paid in the year 2020 that may not necessarily be as attractive to DRA now. But last year for Louisiana, for CDAP, we had drinking water, wastewater, lift station rehabs, water wells, water mains. There were some airport infrastructure projects, some port projects, road and transportation improvements, but specifically that supported local access and economic activity. Not just build a road in the middle. You need a connection from two locations that don't really have much economic activity. It has to have some business tied to it. Energy efficiency and operational cost reduction in public systems, small business support, workforce development tied to economic growth, and infrastructure tied to business retention and expansion. Now we're going to look at last year's SIF examples. And this, we're looking at the whole DRA region, not just Louisiana, because there were, bigger dollar amount awards, but less of them for that reason. So SIF paid for storm sewer and drainage infrastructure, wastewater rehab, drinking water, water systems, water storage tanks, transportation infrastructure, improvements tied to economic assets, combined infrastructure, road and sewer, flood mitigation and drainage, electrical systems for reliable power service, and utility infrastructure for business growth and competitiveness. So again, a lot of these projects probably could have been funded under one or the other, but let's just talk case by case and figure out what makes sense for you and for your project. And this has come up a few times, and so I'm just going to go ahead and ask the question for the crowd. Can we and or should we apply for both? Generally, you are allowed to apply for both, but the guidance that we've received from DRA is that those two applications should not be for the same scope, first of all, because they should be funding two different aspects so you're not double dipping and having the same funds pay for the same work. But generally speaking, DRA does take into account that they would like to spread out their funds, distribute them geographically. It's not common for them to hit the same community twice in a row in the same time frame with two different award programs. Not to say that it could not happen. If they are two just really good projects, they could be awarded. But generally speaking, DRA likes to see their funds spread out. So you have to make that decision for yourself. In one side of the coin, you're sort of competing against yourself if you apply under two programs. On the other side, if it is totally makes sense and you can get the support to do so, talk to us and let's see if it makes sense for you to do that. But and if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about how to apply and a couple of the major things that you want to keep in mind as you get into applying. The first thing you're going to want to do is figure out who your application team is, and that might look different for everyone. Generally speaking, you're going to need your authorizing official as your main decision maker and convener. So that's going to be your parish presidents and police jury presidents, your mayors. If it's a nonprofit, then whoever the highest representative of that entity is. Then you'll work with us as the local development district. You'll work with your procured engineers for the technical aspects because there's going to be a couple of requirements that they will need to produce, which we'll go over here in a little bit. Any staff that you have that are grant writing, whether that be your own staff or your or consultants, um, but whoever is going to be putting the story of your application, the narrative together, not just the cost estimates and the budget, but who is going to represent via storytelling your project. Um, and the administrative staff, whoever is going to be working with me on quarterly reports, all the monitoring and compliance, pay requests, if you have modifications, whether that be related to the scope or the budget or the timeline, whoever is the one sort of handling the paperwork from your end of the grant. My advice is to get your full team engaged from the beginning so that you don't have siloed approaches working in different directions. And I am more than happy to help you put your team together. If you really just don't know where to start at all, let me be your step one. Okay, reach out and we'll work together on that. And I put at the bottom there, and this is rare. I'll be honest, I haven't seen this happen in our region yet, and I would love to. Collaboration is encouraged across states, parishes, and municipal boundaries with businesses, community stakeholders, nonprofits, you name it. But having joint applications where more than one entity is involved, um, on a partnership. So, you know, okay, so once you have your team together and it's time to start applying, again, the first thing you're going to want to do is download the NOFA for whatever program you're applying for and familiarize yourself with it. Like too often people want to apply for something, but they don't take the 20 minutes to sit down and read the program manual. And then once they get all the way through application into the award administration, they're caught by surprise by something that was supposed to have been read before they ever even applied. So please familiarize yourself with the NOFA. Um, once you, again, the portal link is on those pages on DRA.gov. But before you start applying, this trips some people up. Make sure your SAM.gov registration is current and up to date. Don't take it for granted that you happen to know it's up to date. Just go look at SAM.gov and verify. I had one project one year, a couple years ago, get halfway through their application before they realized that their SAM.gov was set to expire right before the application deadline. And it takes weeks going back and forth with SAM.gov and the folks over at the Cage Code office. Um, we had them to like APC, we were going through our SAM renewal one time and we had abbreviated street in our address. And SAM declined it because their record indicated that street was spelled out STREET and it didn't match identically. So they pushed it back and that was another week. So don't wait until the last minute for your SAM.gov registration. That should be your step number two after you build your application team. Or you could do it as step number one. Just do it at the beginning. So, and then on the application, you're going to have to verify that you're within an area of distress. And so, yeah, again, I feel like I'm ending every slide by saying reach out to us at APC and we'll help you get started within the portal if you need help. Okay, this is one of the best features of the NOFAs that DRA creates. They really help y'all out and give you a scoring rubric with criteria, with their scoring criteria. And it's broken down think of it like a cheat sheet that you get before a test, right? Because it truly spells out what they mean for each section. Um, and this should be how you reference, when you want to know what's in the application. Look, I'm going to give a piece of advice for applying for DRA is use the scoring rubric from the NOFA to develop your application in a program like Microsoft Word or something that you can work on with spell check that you're comfortable with and really build your application in that program. And then once you've reached a point where you and your team have reviewed it and you're comfortable with it and you're ready to put it into the portal, then you go in the portal and you populate those prompts for each one and save it. You will save yourself a lot of trouble by doing that. So you can use the scoring rubric and the criteria that they provide you in the NOFA to build out your application before you ever get into the portal. I would still recommend you get in that portal and get set up and familiarize yourself with it, but I would recommend doing your application in Word and then copy pasting those responses to the portal once they're done. So really use those scoring criteria wisely. Um, this I pulled from the previous. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. I pulled this from the NOFA from SEDAP. Okay. So these are the application sections, and each of them have like a little subsection. So like if you look here closely at this slide, you can see the copy pasted rubric. Like it gives a little prompt for you have to, under description of project and community needs, you need to be addressing community infrastructure challenges and data to receive the full maximum allowable points, which is 15. Um, so the, the application, let me just tell you this. These are not difficult applications, especially compared to some that I've seen from like USDA or EPA or CDBG. These are a little more simple, but don't underestimate, the time that it takes to sit down and actually pay attention to each of these sections. If you're doing this the week of, you're going to be pulling your hair out. So right now you have about from now until July 31st, and time flies. So I would recommend getting started, familiarizing yourself and writing these responses as soon as you're able to. And then there's a few sections that APC can help with, like when we talk about alignment with local and regional economic development initiatives and plans. Here at APC, we manage the comprehensive economic development strategy. So if you don't have a comp plan within your community, you can sort of default to ours. And so we have some language that we can help with for your application. So if you're not sure about a section, let me know. Um, okay, this is a checklist that I've sort of created over the years, and I'm adding to it over time. But these are things that you do not want to wait until the last minute and do not take for granted that you have it already. Um, you're going to need all of the following, especially if your project is construction based. Okay, if you're going after business development or entrepreneurship or workforce, maybe you might have a different set of attachments. But generally speaking, especially water and sewer, you're going to need engineering studies and construction estimates, estimates of probable cost, a preliminary engineering report. This one trips people up because I think a lot of engineers hear preliminary engineering report and they think that it's a super technical document that's going to take a lot of time and manpower to create. But really, what that is spelling out in a standalone document with an engineering, you know, letterhead or stamp on it, spelling out all of the things that are already in your application, but just making it super clear, like an introduction paragraph. This is what the project is. This is the timeline. This is the budget. These are the constraints. Like really just spelling out in a standalone little couple pages. It doesn't have to be long at all because all of these need to be reviewed. So brief is better, but you do have to have that PER. A lot of times people submit and the engineers say, well, I didn't know we had to do that. Or they'll say, you know, that's not something that we typically do. And then DRA is asking for it. So, it needs to happen. And this year, I'm really going to make sure these happen on the front end so that DRA doesn't have to ask for it. Um, if you are ready to start construction and you already have plans and specs, those need to be included with the application. You will have to have water and sewer rate studies. And the more recent, the better. If it's old, you will have to get a new one. Um, the Louisiana Rural Water Association is a fantastic resource to get free sewer and water rate studies, but especially whenever DRA cycles open up, they get a long queue and list of people interested in those rate studies. So if you need one, you need to get your name in the queue ASAP so that you're not receiving that rate study after the application date. Um, if you have other funding, whether that be from your own local government or from something like capital outlay or a revolving loan program or CDBG, anything else, any other funding, you have to have a letter of commitment, stating, yes, these funds are available for this project specifically. If you have capital outlay, we need something from the state showing that these funds are available and ready to go because um, it's not going to be just on your word. DRA wants to see that proof to know that those pieces are in place before they make their investment. Participation agreements. If you are promising job creation and or retention, you can significantly increase the competitiveness of your application if you have a business willing to provide a participation agreement. These can be tricky. Um, if it's a small mom and pop business that you're not really sure their economic forecasts over the next 5 years, maybe they shouldn't sign this because it is a little bit of a liability. It is a contractual agreement that that business and the awardee is making with DRA, verifying that they are going to create and or maintain X number of jobs for up to 5 years, and DRA checks. They will come back and see if you have made those jobs or not. And if you did not hold up your end of the bargain, it could be bad for you and your project team. If you have a big um, industry business in your community or a medical center or something that you know for a fact they're not going anywhere, they're a staple to the community, they're going to be there, and they're willing to submit a participation agreement with no real risk to them, then um, absolutely get that because that can strengthen your project. And if you're not sure, reach out. Letters of support. We're talking about your Congress people, your Senate representation, your local elected officials, uh, your businesses that are relevant to the project. If you have a mom and pop that says we're going to benefit from this project, we're not really comfortable to provide a full participation agreement, but we can give you a letter of support. Absolutely get that letter of support from them. We don't need a letter of support from every business in your community. You don't want to water it down. You want to get those critical, relevant, key ones. Um, you're going to have to put your project timeline, and I don't just mean like a 5 bullet point time, like really spell it out, take some time and develop a timeline, and it's going to have to be on a standalone PDF. You will need your project team's resumes. Critically speaking, your certified official, whoever your top authorizing official that's going to sign off on everything. And we like to see the lead engineer, at least those two resumes if you can provide that. And then DRA loves visuals. If you have site maps, photographs, diagrams, anything that can visually represent your project, that does in fact strengthen your application. All right, moving on. So the work plan and budget. Um, I am going to make a recommendation to our applicants that you work on the work plan before you really dive into the application. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that here in a second. But you're going to have to describe all the tasks, descriptions, and key personnel and deliverables, along with the timeline and the costs associated. Um, DRA has it on their application portal that it's an Excel file that you'll have to download, and you will have to fill this work plan out and include it with your application. I've seen it happen where um, folks will develop their full application and then not realize that they had to do a work plan until the very end. And then they get to the work plan and it asks you to spell out your budget by task, and they've already built their full budget, but they didn't realize it was going to have to be broken down in this way. And so they have to go back to the drawing board on the budget. If you do this first, this will inform your budget and really help you with the rest of the application. I would truly recommend you download that work plan first before you work on your application. Um, so moving on, once you get into the application portal, this is generally what it looks like. Okay. For you, you don't see it here on my screen because I am at the local development district. But for you, once you make your account and get in there, there will be a green button up here at the top that says Add Collaborator. That button will allow you to add me as a collaborator to your application and give me access so that I can get in there and check what you've done. But more critically, if there are technical issues in the portal, I can kind of get in there and see what's up and coordinate with our friends at DRA to get that technical issue straightened out for you. Um, a few every year there's one or two applications that fly by without us being involved or aware, and every year those applications get flagged for missing elements and things that so really I want to encourage you, do not apply without consulting with us first, and add us as a collaborator if you feel comfortable to do so. And that's not the same as this thumbnail here that says LDD collaboration. That is not the button I'm referencing. It would be up at the top. This is just certifying that you have indeed chosen to engage with the LDD as the collaborator. Um, you may be thinking, what happens if I don't want to work with the LDD? If I just we got this under control, we don't need to engage them. You feel free to go ahead and do that, and you can submit. And if you get awarded, um, I'm not sure. You may be, we may be working on administration of that grant regardless. Even if you apply and get it without engaging us on the application, DRA is likely to flag us and involve us once the program needs to be administered. So again, all the more reason to just get with us on the front end. Um, your budget narrative, beyond spelling out your amounts, your budget amounts, you were going to have to write out in paragraph form what each category is doing for your project. So when you say we have project inspection fees, they want to know, okay, what are you specifically using that for inspection? Um, so just be prepared to provide that description of costs for each budget item. Um, Budget categories. These are generally the budget categories on DRA's construction projects. But I want to highlight the architecture and engineering fees because this trips people up. Um, DRA has a rule in place that architecture and engineering fees, and that does count for the other A&E category as well as the main A&E category, are considered allowable, but they are paid out in thirds, okay? So don't expect to have a pay request drawing down 100% of your architecture and engineering fees all at once. You have to go by these three milestones. The first can be paid out once you've completed and accepted your plans and specs. So if you make that first request for a third, let's just use a number $30,000 for architecture and engineering. Once you get your plans and specs, you submit those to DRA, and once they approve, you are eligible to request the first 10,000. Once you have a successful bid and an awarded contract, you submit that contract of, with your contractor to DRA, and you may be paid the second 10,000. And then the final A&E payment can be paid once the completed work is done. So on the third milestone is completion of the work, then you can be paid out that last 10,000, totaling to your 30,000 for A&E. I've had people get into pay requests and not realize that, and it causes a little bit of confusion. So that is something you'll want to be aware of from the beginning. Those are all of the specific slides I have with technical advice. I have my contact information here, but before we end today, I want to open it up to the audience. Anyone who's got any questions or wants me to go back to any slide, anything that you would like to ask, now is your chance. So I'll go ahead and open it up.
Hey, Kate, it's Donald.
Hey, Donald.
Hey, you said you were recording the Zoom session. Will it be available for us to watch?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. And where would we tune in for that?
What I'll do is I'll upload a video to YouTube and
Okay.
send that link out.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? You've got DRA on the call too, so if you want to ask any questions, now is your chance.
Would, thank you, Keith. This is very thorough. I appreciate it. But to follow up on Mr. Donald's question, so we will get the handouts of the slides will be available.
Yes, ma'am. I can make the slides available as well. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Lena.
No, your voice. And the video the other way. Go.
Hey, Amanda. I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, Cade. Yeah, I had one question. You mentioned the previously awarded projects for Louisiana, and I'm looking for more information. There was one about small business support and entrepreneur training, and I was looking on the DRA website. It looks like they don't have kind of the more recent projects. So where can I find out more about those projects?
Let's see. If you go, I'm gonna share my screen away from the slides to my browser, and let's see if I can't find it. Under media, they have press announcements. And
Okay.
if you go, oh, that's not, it used to let you select it by state, but I scrolled back until I found the DRA invests blank million. It was like six. Um,
Okay, so it would be the Louisiana press release, I
yeah,
guess.
here we go. DRA invests nearly 6.8 million to Louisiana communities. That is what I pulled that bullet list from, but it actually has, I anonymized it, so I didn't call anyone out specifically. But this has the actual awardees with the amounts and the specifics of what they applied for. So you can actually go and see that for yourself. And then you can also find, if you continue to scroll on their current and recent news and events, you'll find the SIF awards for the full Delta region. So that's where you
Okay,
can find that.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And let's see. All right, before we adjourn, any last questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right, so oh wait, let me check my chat.
Hey, this is Darcy. I did answer a question in the chat, and I just wanted to let everybody know Kate is a very good resource. He's very good at the job that he does, and he cares about the communities. So I do encourage you all to contact Kate and contact Kate early in the application cycles, well before the deadline, to communicate your needs so that he can help you develop an application. Everything that he presented, I am very impressed with the visuals that just spells it out in layman's terms as to what is offered and what is available. So that very good resource if he sends out the slides for you to use. Also good guidance that you've given Kate as well, just for everyone's benefit here. Some things I did want to mention in the chat, Danielle had asked about capital outlay funds, matching DRA funds. Yes, and we've had several of those instances with previous projects where capital outlay does match DRA. With any type of matching, DRA is pretty lax on that. We will consider match of any source as long as that other source welcomes DRA's funds in the conjunction of that project. Some things to keep in mind with match though, we will require proof that those funds are committed to the project. So with capital outlay, I know there's some gray areas in there and sometimes some waiting, but we have to have proof that those funds are in fact readily available for use on the project. So we're looking for a grant agreement, a resolution, a letter, something saying that those are committed. Some other things I did want to mention, Kate, you had mentioned that we operate on a reimbursement basis. We do like to, and that is our preferred method. There are instances when sorry, my son just walked through and being goofy. But there are some instances where we can authorize an advance of funds. Like if your community cannot afford the payout up front and wait for DRA to reimburse those funds. But that's on a case-by-case basis, and you would work with Kate and then Tamaya to process that. So just keep that in mind. And then see, Kate had just shown you all where the press announcements are on our website. But please feel free to go on there and sign up for the DRA news releases. Anyone can do that. You don't have to be an LDD or DRA staff member to receive the press releases that DRA puts out. You can go on, sign up, and you can receive all of the updated information that DRA puts out, and that includes the opening of each cycle. So just kind of wanted to give you a backstory on some of those items that I noticed. Again, Cade, great visuals, great guidance. Tamaya and I are both here for questions if you need it, but Kate is your main point of contact, and he does a great job. Thank you all for letting us join.
Thank you so much, Darcy, for the kind words and for the backup. And if anybody has any questions after this, reach out and we're here to help. So otherwise, look out for the slides and the recording, and good luck to all of our applicants. And we look forward to working with y'all. And thanks again, everyone, and you all have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you.